Hello and welcome to this special edition of Represent NYC on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. I'm Jeff Mays, political reporter with DNAinfo New York. Joining me today is public advocate Letitia James. Ms. James made history in 2014, becoming the first woman of color to hold citywide office here in New York. The public advocate is the second highest ranking elected office in the city and serves as a direct link between you and your government, acting as a watchdog over our city agencies and investigating complaints about city services. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you've taken that watchdog role pretty seriously so far, and we've had a new president elected, and there's been concern expressed from many of our leaders here in the city about some of his potential policies, and you've expressed some concern as well. What are your plans in terms of making sure that New York City is protected from some of these issues, such as immigration, deportation, the repeal of Obamacare? Tell me what you are doing on those issues.
So what makes our country great is our democracy and our diversity. And here in New York City, I have a responsibility and a duty to protect those who are vulnerable and marginalized. And so I've heard from individuals who are in the immigrant community who are concerned about deportation. I've spoken to members of the LGBT community. I've spoken to African Americans. I've spoken to a number of individuals of conscience who are just concerned about the direction of our nation. But the reality is that there are checks and balances, and we live in a city, in a country of laws. And my responsibility and my duty is to defend those laws and to defend the Constitution and protect marginalized communities, and to recognize and to stand up whenever Donald Trump seeks to turn back the clock of progress, all the progress that we've made in New York City. And so we're going to lawyer up. We're going to work with the City Council under the leadership of the Speaker, Melissa Margarito, and the Mayor of the City of New York to provide organizations with attorneys so that whenever there is a threat against our democracy and our freedoms and our civil liberties, we're going to fight back, and we're going to fight back. But we're going to, when we can agree, for instance, on infrastructure, we'll work with the administration. On childcare, we'll work with the administration. But when it comes to our basic values, our fundamental beliefs, we're going to defend them tooth and nail. You can best believe that we're going to do that.
What are the top issues where you think New York City might be vulnerable with issues coming down from Washington and the Trump administration?
We're a sanctuary city. And so I've spoken to students who are fearful of being deported, students who came here when they were children, who are now in college, who know only one country, the United States of America, and who are afraid that they will be deported. I've spoken to a countless number of immigrants all throughout the city of New York who are just concerned about a Trump administration. And I just I hope that he will not gut DACA, and that he will protect the rights and recognize that New York City, and he lives in New York City, is a sanctuary city. And the reason why it's great is because of our diversity and our democracy. And that is my number one concern at this point in time. Two, the other concern is obviously yesterday I heard he's going to have Congress pay for the wall, taxpayers. It's a ridiculous idea. Three, I'm concerned about rolling back voting rights, progress that we've made. One of the reasons why Hillary Clinton did not win is because we rolled back the progress on voting rights. And a lot of votes were suppressed in southern states. So those are just some of the issues, including but not limited also to the defunding of Planned Parenthood, which I heard yesterday. They plan on going forward with the defunding of Planned Parenthood. I don't know whether they're going to do that under the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, but obviously the repealing of Obamacare without replacing it and without specifics is obviously a concern to New Yorkers, as well as the defunding of Planned Parenthood, which is much more. Planned Parenthood does much more than provide abortions. Right. It provides health care to countless number of women, and particularly low-income women in the city of New York.
What are you telling New Yorkers who might be scared that their health care might go away, or that they could possibly face deportation after being here for most of their lives? As
I've gone all throughout the city of New York, more individuals have recognized that it's really about organizing. It's about connecting with something bigger than themselves. It's not living in silos, and recognizing that we should join for coalitions, and we should work together and form alliances. So as I travel through the 5 boroughs, I've seen individuals come out of their comfort zone and say, I'm going to join with you and fight back. And that's what we are seeing.
Well, you mentioned you would work with Mayor de Blasio and the City Council to kind of help protect New Yorkers. You've had an interesting relationship with the mayor during your term. You seemingly endorsed him several months ago, and then you kind of backed off of that a little bit. You said the mayor is under investigation for some of his fundraising, and you said a grand jury investigation is very serious, and you're going to withhold comment. Where does your relationship with the mayor stand? Will you guys be able to work together effectively on some of these issues the city's going to be facing? So
I've supported the mayor. The mayor and I have a long relationship. It goes back to our days as the city council, as members of the city council. And I agree with the mayor on a number of his policies. However, I disagree with the mayor on a number of other issues. And in fact, as you know, I've been very active in litigating in our litigation and in filing lawsuits against the mayor of the city of New York on behalf of issues that have come to our attention through our hotline. And so, you know, the mayor is doing well, and I thought that at some point in time I would endorse the mayor of the city of New York and work towards his reelection. But then I heard about these investigations, and you know, a grand jury investigation is very serious. And as an attorney, I want to withhold any endorsement at this point in time until such time as we hear from the grand jury on their investigation.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? What specifically concerns you about these issues? There's been some concern about the mayor's fundraising, and that's what the U.S. Attorney is looking into. There's also been some concern about his use of outside consultants, so-called agents of the city, which some people have questioned the use of that term. Tell me a little bit about your specific concerns about those issues.
So as I've said before, consultants and agents, the agents, what is it called? The agents
of the city.
Agents of the city. It's I've never heard of that term. I don't know whether or not it has any legal significance. To me, those two terms are distinctions without much of a difference, and no one should be at a table, no consultant, no agent of the city of New York should be at the table at this basically formulating policy, at the same time representing the interest of special interest, or basically serving as a consultant to special interest in the city of New York. To me, it's an inherent conflict, and it should cause some concern. It has caused some concern to my office and to me as a public advocate of the city of New York. And so at this point in time, I'm going to withhold any endorsement until the investigation is completed and until there are some findings and I can review those findings. And at that point in time, I'll make a decision.
Your name has been mentioned, though, quite often as a potential candidate. This is an election year here in New York City. What are your thoughts on that? Are you going to run for public advocate again? Are you thinking about throwing your hat into the mayoral race? What happens if the mayor is indicted? Will you run for office?
So I don't deal in hypothetics. And I'm so glad that so many people are mentioning my name, and it's been bantied about through the media and through a number of elected officials who are strategizing throughout the city of New York. At this point in time, I'm just focused on serving the needs of New Yorkers, who unfortunately do not have high-paid lawyers and or lobbyists by their side, who basically want to navigate through the bureaucracy of government and who need services in the city of New York. And I enjoy the role of public advocate and look forward to serving as the public advocate of the city of New York.
I mean, this is your chance to set the record straight. Are you thinking about the office of mayor?
I'm thinking about the office of public advocate of the city of New York and serving the interest of New Yorkers in the city of New York.
So you've criticized the mayor's administration on a number of issues. Mm-hmm. What do you think of his administration so far? He's entering an election year. He's talked about a lot of his accomplishment, universal pre-K, crime being down. What are your thoughts on the administration and the job they've done so far? So
he needs to be congratulated. Crime is down on record low levels of crime in the city of New York. Children are now enjoying universal pre-K. That's a major accomplishment in the city of New York. We need to do more to address homelessness. That's a major challenge. There are 60,000 to 80,000 New Yorkers who are living in our shelters, and a third of them are children. And it's just really unconscionable in a city of this size, in a city of this magnitude, with this great level of wealth, that we have so many individuals who are living in the shadows and who are homeless, and particularly children. And so we need to build more affordable housing and supportive housing. And so what we need to do is work with the state of New York, work with the governor to identify areas where we can build supportive and affordable housing as soon as possible, and housing for those individuals who are suffering from a wide range of illnesses. And so that's what we really need to do. And unfortunately, it's not been built fast enough, and there are still too many New Yorkers who unfortunately feel that the affordable housing that is being built does not really meet their needs, and it's not really affordable to them. So we need to build for low, moderate, and middle income families in the city of New York in units that are large enough to accommodate families, individuals with children. And we need to make sure that we provide for individuals who are suffering from mental illness, individuals who are living with HIV and AIDS, victims of domestic violence. We need to, again, build more supportive housing, which is why the governor of the state of New York needs to release funds, and the state legislature, along with the governor of the state of New York, needs to identify areas and state buildings which are empty at this point in time that can be repurposed for supportive housing and or affordable housing in the state of New York. And it's unfortunate that we have this tension and this rivalry between two powerful men. And unfortunately, it's only the New Yorkers, vulnerable New Yorkers, who are falling through the cracks. Middle-class New Yorkers who are getting, and that group is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, who are unfortunately feeling the pain, and who are being victimized as a result of this tension that currently exists between a municipality and the state of New York.
Yeah, you mentioned that feud, that long-running feud that the mayor and the governor have had, and it's played out in a number of public policy decisions, from affordable housing to homelessness, as you mentioned. But what do you think, is that really hurting the city? Has the city suffered because the city and the state have had some issues, the two leaders have had some issues? And if so, what do you think needs to be done? How can we end this situation?
I think we all need to recognize that we are here to serve. And it's not about your own personal interest, and it's about the needs of others. And again, 60 to 80,000 New Yorkers in New York City are homeless, and a third of them are children. You can see them on our subways, you can see them on our streets, individuals who are suffering from mental illness. What we need to do is get together, put our egos aside, check them out the door, and come up with a plan to build affordable housing, either on state land or on city-owned land in the city of New York. Our office has identified a number of state buildings that are completely empty, and that we can build supportive housing in the city of New York. We need to get to work, and we need to, again, think about the individuals who put us in office to serve them and to address some of these problems that currently exist. And one of the biggest challenges in our city is homelessness.
Your name has also been mentioned as a possible Brooklyn DA candidate. Where do you stand on that? Do you see that as a possible office for yourself? And what do you think of the job that the current DA, Eric Gonzalez, is doing?
So again, my thoughts and my prayers are with the former District Attorney Ken Thompson, who was a neighbor and a friend. And he did amazing work. And I work with him on a number of issues: the Integrity Conviction Unit, on the Second Chance Program, on domestic violence, and basically on sex trafficking in the borough of Brooklyn. And Eric Gonzalez, who I've just met and who I'm getting to know, is doing an amazing job, and he's going to continue the legacy of District Attorney Ken Thompson. At this point in time, I'm focused on the Office of Public Advocate and look forward to working with the District Attorney, whoever that may be, to serve the interest of New Yorkers and to reform a criminal justice system which unfortunately has been broken.
You haven't been shy about suing the city, as you mentioned, suing the mayor. Let's talk about some of those areas where you've taken on the city. One particular area that you've been focusing on recently is ACS, the Administration for Children's Services. There have been a few well-publicized child deaths, Jordan Jaden. You also had Zymir Perkins, who also died, and both may have been known to ACS. So you've had some criticisms of ACS. You've used words like mismanagement and lack of oversight. Can you tell us what you think is happening at ACS and what needs to happen?
So the lawsuit that we filed was not only against the city, but also against the state of New York. The state settled, the city did not. And our position has always been that children are being abused psychologically, physically, and sexually in a system which is broken and is in need of fundamental reform. And what we really need to do is do a deep dive into the Administration for Children's Services, and that includes, but is not limited to, again, retraining caseworkers, hiring more social workers, providing more oversight over these contract agencies, because ACS does not provide these services. They contract them out to these contract agencies, and there's little or no oversight over these contract agencies. And unfortunately, too many children are falling through the cracks in the city of New York. And ACS is just too unwieldy, and it's just too large. There are they handle too many functions. They handle child welfare, they handle juvenile justice, and they handle child care. And what we really need to do is examine those areas and see how best we can serve the interest of New Yorkers, and but particularly child welfare, because too many individuals are remaining in foster care too long. They're not being adopted. Too many children, again, are being abused psychologically, sexually. We're not, again, utilizing family reunification, and I think the most critical aspect, or the major criticism of ACS is that they're not providing services to families who desperately need them to keep their child in place. And that includes, but is not limited to, drug treatment as well as mental illness. And so a lot of these contract agencies, and we've received a number of complaints against these contract agencies, do not have the wherewithal and or the manpower and or the services to provide these critical needs, to address the critical needs of these parents who desperately want to keep their child in home, but unfortunately are in desperate need of critical services.
So what specifically needs to be done? Because spending has increased on some of these issues that you've raised, and there have been some efforts at reform ACS in terms of training individuals. So give me your bullet point specifically. How do you address some of those issues that you just raised? I
would break up ACS, 1. 2, I would not contract with some contract agencies in the city of New York. 3, I would grade them. 4, I would look at family reunification and kinship care. We need to do more of that. 5, we need to make sure that services are being provided to parents on an efficient and expeditious manner. Parents should not be placed on waiting lists for drug treatment. Parents should not be placed on waiting lists for mental health services. Parents should not have to travel from one borough to another to get services. Those are just some of the issues, and we need more social workers, and we need to pay our caseworkers. We need to increase the salary of caseworkers and treat them with respect, because they have a very challenging job, including these child protective workers who go out each and every day. And they go out and they have very challenging jobs, and they go out to some neighborhoods and some homes, which is very scary. And we need to protect them, and we need to provide them with more technology. They need to come into the 21st century. And unfortunately, some of these reforms that we have sought have been rejected by the city of New York, which is why, again, the state settled, the city did not. And then as a result of the recent tragedy, now the state has imposed upon the city independent monitor, and that's something that we were seeking in our litigation. And unfortunately, it took a tragedy to get some change in ACS. Had the city come to the table, they would not have been in a position to have it forced upon them. They could have just recognized and worked with us in the state in coming to the realization that ACS is desperately in need of reform.
Is this an issue of top-down management? I mean, you've criticized outgoing ACS Commissioner Gladys Cardione. You said she did a poor job. And Mayor de Blasio has shot back at you on that issue. He said he totally disagrees, thinks she's a reformer, and that he's been pushing heavy reforms on that agency. There's also been some critiques of you that this is just politics for you, and that you're using this to broaden your appeal and your profile, and that you're not being fair in judging the agency. How do you respond to those?
So let me first just say that I'm a former counsel to the Assembly Committee on Children and Families. I serve 2 state elected officials who serve that committee. I'm a former city council member, and I happen to be an attorney who practiced in family court. And so this is an issue that is close to my heart, because I've gone to family court and I've seen the children, and I see them in my neighborhood. And I know, and I hear the cries of children who have been abused psychologically, mentally, and sexually. This has nothing to do with politics. And the fact is that, again, the governor came to the table and decided to work with us, and the city did not. If the governor decided to work with us for politics, or for whatever reason, that's of no moment to me. the bottom line is that if it benefits the children of the city of New York, if it benefits children who are in foster care who are suffering, if it benefits children who, again, want to return to their family, and the only reason why they're not being returned to their family is because they cannot get the much needed resources, then you criticize me, that's fine. But at the end of the day, my objective is to prevent children from falling through the cracks in the city of New York. And it's also, let me just say, I respect Commissioner Carry-On, and I wish her well. She has provided incredible service to the state of New York as well as to the city of New York. But this is bigger than one person. The reforms that are needed are larger than one individual. And so I'm hoping to work forward. I look forward to working with the Administration for Children's Services, whoever is the next commissioner, as well as the mayor of the city of New York and the governor of the state of New York, again, to make sure that no child is harmed and no child remains in foster care for an extended period of time because their parents cannot get services. I
mean, one critique I've heard of this issue, though, is that this is not the first time you've had children die in dramatic ways. The Zymir Perkins case is certainly not the first time. There's a critique that there's a cycle at ACS where you have a child die, there's call for reforms. Sometimes the child protective services workers or become a little too zealous, pull children out of the home that don't need to be out of the home. How do you break that cycle? What needs to be done? How do you get beyond the headlines of, you know, this child died to actually making permanent, lasting reforms at ACS?
So the philosophy has been, you know, when in doubt, take them out. And that's not a legal basis for removing a child. And so I do not want to increase the number of children being removed from their parents as a result of a tragedy. What I want to do is prevent tragedies from happening. And so what I have been, there tends to be a trend. And what we are seeing is that a number of children in high-profile cases have died at the hands of their mother's boyfriend. Mm-hmm. 2, what I'm also seeing, another trend is domestic violence tends to be prevalent or present in the home. And so what we really need to do, and the administration recognizes that we need to do a better job working with the District Attorney's Office and NYPD in identifying families that have domestic violence and monitor those families. 2, we need to provide more assistance and service to female-headed households, and we need to provide young families, young mothers with infant care and child care and additional services so that they do not have to rely upon boyfriends to care for their children. Boyfriends who are not equipped to care for children.
Right. Let's move on quickly. You've also had something to say about the minority women business enterprise efforts of the city. Comptroller Scott Stringer has done a couple of reports that show the city is severely lacking in that area. The mayor has announced some reforms to increase that number, but it's going to take several years to get there. I believe you endorsed that plan. What does the city need to do to increase minority women business enterprises?
They need to identify WMBEs who exist. They need to give them the opportunity. They need to do joint ventures. They need to subcontract with them. They need to promote them. We need to do a better job, but I know that we are limited in given the fact that we are governed by state law. And state law basically says that we have to go with the lowest responsible bidder. And the lowest responsible bidder oftentimes are businesses that are from out of town and businesses oftentimes which are not minority or women-owned businesses in the city of New York. And we need to, again, extend contracting opportunities to WMBEs, be it for widgets, all the way to contracting opportunities for major construction projects in the city of New York. We need to create more wealth in our city, and the best way to do that is to provide opportunities to women and minority-owned businesses who tend to hire from the community. That's what we really need to do, and unfortunately in the city of New York we've done a poor job, and in fact in some of the agencies we've done a very poor job where the numbers again hover around 3 to 5%. We can do better, and we really need to provide them more capacity, lending capacity. We need to loan them some money. We need to provide them with insurance, bonding insurance, all of those issues and more. And I'm really happy that the mayor of the city of New York has recognized that and has hired someone full-time just to focus on that. And I look forward to working with them to increase the numbers.
What about the criticism that his plan is going to take several years to actually take effect, and that he may not even be in office when his 30% goal takes effect?
Well, hopefully, working with his administration, he'll increase the amount of money he set aside for WMBEs. I look forward to working with him to increase opportunities in contracting, in purchasing, and procurement, and in some of the city agencies. Obviously, we can do better, and I will continue to monitor the situation and continue to raise my voice with respect to providing opportunities and creating wealth in communities of color and creating opportunities for women in the city of New York.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for watching the special edition of Represent NYC on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. I'm Jeff Mays. Goodbye.